What if the biggest communication problem in your life isn't what people are saying, but what you think you're hearing? This is the Delay the Binge podcast, where we learn how to pause in the moments that matter most so you can choose differently, build momentum, and finish stronger. I'm your host, Pam Dwyer, and today I'm joined by Christine Miles. Christine is a pioneer in what she calls listening intelligence and the creator of the Listening Path, a framework that helps people uncover what's actually underneath a conversation, not just what's said, but what's meant. She's also the author of What Is It Costing You Not to Listen? And when she was on the show before, it was one of those conversations that really shifts how you see communication. Since then, her work has expanded even further into emotional intelligence, leadership, and helping people move from reacting to actually understanding. So, bringing her back for this Becoming series felt like the perfect next step. Christine, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Christine, I'd love to start here. What have you been most focused on lately, and what's been pulling your attention or even stretching you in a new way?
Wow, it's interesting timing. I just did my first TED Talk a week and a half ago. So yeah. So what's the Einstein phrase that if you can't say something simply, you probably don't understand it well enough? And even as many years as I've been in this field and as long as I've been doing this, and there's always more room for simplifying, understanding, owning the material. And, that really was what that process, it was a process leading up to that. And it was not easy because you're so close, as we all are. I was very close to the content and everything feels important. But when you're like, nope, I got to get it to 10 minutes, then you go, what really matters? So that's what I was focused on for the last few months. And it's amazing when you put that work in, how the moment feels. The moment feels so special because it just feels so right. So it was really it was quite a culmination of both years of work and months of work kind of combined.
Man, congratulations on the TED Talk. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see it. I want to watch it.
Thank you. Yes, it'll be out in a few weeks. So I'm excited
Oh,
about that.
awesome.
Yeah. And
What
lots
was
of
that
people have had
experience
that.
like?
Yeah. Go
Was it
ahead.
surreal?
A little bit. I mean, it's interesting. It's such, it's a privilege to even be selected. And there's lots of people that have this opportunity and make the most of it. And it's just great to be surrounded with other people that have very unique perspectives and an idea we're sharing, because there's a cohort with each event that happens. So that was really special. But I think, like I said, I think for me, it's all about just refining to the moment where it makes the most sense to the masses, and it just matches where I am in terms of wanting to get the scale to serve more people so that more people can learn this vital skill and it not feel complicated and it feel as simple as possible and as attainable as possible. So that moment felt really special.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I want to stay here for just a moment and just
Sure.
absorb this with you because your work hasn't stayed in one lane. I notice when you look at where you are now,
hmm
what what feels like it's expanding or shifting in your thinking, or is it the same as it was when you first started?
Well, I think it's evolving. I don't think it's really changing. I've been doing this work in some form for most of my career, but I think what's getting better and better is just putting language around what it is how to do this. So again, that it's simple for other people to do it. But a lot of people have looked at me over the years and said, this is you. You weren't born this way. And, so you're intuitive, blah, blah, blah. And I can't deny that I'm intuitive, but I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. And what I realized is that what I do looks like a magic trick, like somebody who's an Olympic athlete who's been practicing a sport I thought of the TEDx as a little bit like gymnasts. They have this routine that they have to do, and they want to perfect it in the moment. And that's what a TEDx felt like versus giving a keynote, which is there's more flexibility, there's more time, there's more, you can use the moments differently. This was more like it's so honed and tight because of the moment that you have to share your idea we're spreading. Then I thought the pressure of that moment is really what's the impact, is that you don't want to, you want to land, you want to stick the landing. So, but what it is that when you unpack how to do it, which is what I've been doing for other people, is like, this isn't a magic trick. This is something anybody can do. I just happen to be an Olympic athlete at it. And that's why it looks like magic. That's why it looks like it's, not something that people understand how to do. So that's really how things have evolved because, like you said in my intro, listening helps you with your emotional intelligence. It helps you as a parent, it helps you in your relationships, it helps you drive sales. There's so many things it touches because it's, to me, the oxygen in the relationship, whether that's a business or a personal relationship. And so you want to make sure there's plenty of that supply to keep the organism healthy. And that's what listening is. Yeah.
Wow, I love that, the oxygen. So I
So,
want to share something I noticed from our first conversation and just on my research on your work and enjoying your work.
thank you.
And it's less about the conversation itself. It's more about what you have chosen to carry, right? There's a way you approach this work that feels very intentional. Like you didn't just develop an idea. You picked something up off the ground and you decided this matters enough to keep going with it. And not
Yeah.
everyone does that. So I'm really curious, what is it about this message, about helping people see what's underneath, that
Yeah.
made you decide, I'm going to carry this forward?
Well, I think it's not just one thing. I think, I consider myself a little bit of a pattern disruptor and breaker in terms of, as I'm sure you're doing the same thing, right? You're disrupting how people think about a lot of things, and just this idea of delaying the binge and what that means, and that could, whatever that binge is, it doesn't have to be food, right? So, um, so you know, there was a lot of, my mom, just to take people back, suffered a lot of sadness from losing her mom as a young person. Like my grandmother died 3 months after she gave birth to my mom. And so that's kind of where the story, as I knew it, began in terms of the legacy of what it meant not to feel seen, heard, and understood. Because my mom felt very unseen throughout her life because she had this loss that, from her perspective, other people didn't relate to, and people struggled to understand it on the depth that she felt it. And so that carried generationally through. That had an impact on me positively, and certainly with my own, stuff that I have to unpack. And I think that that legacy is pervasive in a lot of families and in a lot of areas. And I think because we are not taught to listen, we're just missing so much. And the pain that people feel from not feeling seen, heard, and understood is fixable, but we're not even tackling the problem because it's a problem that most people don't see. So that's the pattern disruptor. Yes, in my own family that matters, but what if I hadn't learned that? How would I have survived and thrived in other ways? And that's what I think about in terms of kids who aren't, I wasn't the smartest in the room, still not, but I'm smart enough. But if I hadn't had the ability to listen, especially with some of the challenges learning wise I faced, how would I have navigated? And I think about those kinds of things and the importance of finally closing the skill gap. So that, combined with my stubbornness, I guess, helps me want to persist. I think I've really identified an important gap in the market, isn't in the world, and that's the gap that I really want to break, that pattern.
Right. And I think about this a lot, even with my message. It's almost like you're being called to the message. Like the message is the driving force,
Yeah,
because there's so many people benefiting from your work right now. And they don't always see the journey behind it. The
yeah.
becoming isn't always a smooth road.
Oh
And
no, 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 no. Sure,
I'm
sure.
sure there are moments where you're figuring it out in real time. So
Sure.
how did you begin to trust your message enough to not just live it, but build something, around it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, just to go back. So way back, because when you reminded me of something. So I was a college athlete, and I was a Division 3 college athlete. I didn't go Division 1, even though I played at a very high level, and I did exceptionally well athletically in college and then beyond. But people would say to me sometimes, "Well, you always get, or you achieve this," and they looked at the result, but I had tape on my field hockey stick, dribbling in and out of cones in August and going to camps, and because I was, again, not the best athlete naturally, I was really willed myself to a level that I wasn't naturally gifted to just to get there. And if you had gifts and you have the work ethic that I had, that combination is really what helps you overachieve. But so I just think about, most people don't see we don't see the story behind how somebody got there a lot of the time. And so becoming is really, and it's really mirrors the work that I do, which is we look at what's on the surface, but we miss the story that's underneath. And so most people don't achieve an overnight success. We see the last part of that overnight success and we think it was easy, when in fact, sacrifice, hard work, a lot of hard days are what's behind it. And I'm a perfect example of that. Yeah.
Yes, you are. You so are. Were there moments that you doubted it out there on a scaling it? Were there
Yeah.
moments where you were thinking, maybe this is just what I'm feeling and thinking? Because I
You
find
know, I
myself doing that.
Yeah, well, if you're not, I mean, I still have those feelings, because you get to one level and then you get to another level, and then you're trying to get to the next level, and to fulfill the mission. It's like self-awareness. It's really not quite ever done. It's like, you got to keep going. Most things that are worthwhile in life are managed, not cured, right? Like eating, like,
Yes.
you know, you have to manage it. You don't cure it. Like being organized, you have to manage it, or it doesn't, or being in shape. So it's all, that's the hard part, isn't it? But I
Yeah.
remember I'm going back to 2014, and I remember that because it was right near the time my mom passed away. And I was at a company, a large financial tech company, and I was sitting with their top tier C-suite, a couple people. And the founder of this company, I mean, it's a multi-million billion dollar company, so it's huge company at this point. But the founder was sitting in Central Park. They told me this story 7 years into her work, pulling her tech gear, on a wheeled suitcase, and realizing that if she didn't make a sale, she was done. And that was the sale that day, after she sat in Central Park ready to fold up her everything, that she made a deal that allowed her to keep going and became the success that the company was. And I thought that's such a great metaphor for, we're all sitting in Central Park at some point going, what am I doing? Can I make it? Do I have enough to get to the next point? Because it's a heavy, heavy lift as an entrepreneur. And so I remind myself of that, because it's kind of like that story of, you're in a tunnel and they say, the problem is, in a tunnel, sometimes you don't know if you're a mile from the light, or when you're chipping away, or an inch. And
Mhm.
so, do I turn around or do I keep going? Right? Is the
Right.
challenge. Yeah.
Right, and there's a lot of growth with the whole process of building it and getting it out there. I know I have evolved, and I wanna ask you something a little bigger
Okay.
because your message doesn't feel like just like a framework, right? The structure
No,
they keep drilling
no.
into my head saying that I need structure or
Yeah.
framework. It feels more like a movement. What does a movement mean to you? And the m the movement you're creating, did you feel called to it?
Well, I think, yeah, so both from my backstory with my family of origin, but I was injured in an auto accident when I was 28. And then my life, I lived a version of my mom's story. I looked fine on the surface most of the time, but I had major problems and 3 spinal surgeries, and that moment and that period of time when I realized I had the invisible pain my mother suffered from, and the universe just had more to teach me. That's part of the what I
Yeah.
realized.
Yeah.
And it tells you, you know, you're going to learn this, and I that's part of the pattern breaker. So over the course since my 30s, I've been on a course that of figuring this out. And with each gate, you know, one I figured out I had my own experience, and I started working in organizations, and I realized the help I was giving most of the time was around misunderstandings, and it wasn't what people said, it's what they didn't hear or understand. So I'm like, well, that's a problem, but why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because we don't have a common language for how to understand. We don't have a common language for how to listen. So with each kind of evolution, like you described, of becoming, it's like, oh, another piece of the puzzle fits together. So the more that I've been able to sort out the puzzle pieces, the more I've been clear that I can make the impact. And so that's the movement part. And the solution is the easy part now. How to do this, it's mechanized, it's scalable, if people are willing, that's it is important because you need the how. But now it's a matter of getting people to understand how this can benefit them, not just how they do it.
And that's what I love about what you're doing so much is that, there's a lot of talk about mindset, all kinds of things about the pause, listening, not so much. I think that is very unique, but life experiences, the things that are happening to us in life is what fuels the importance of teaching this skill that you've discovered of listening. And it matters to you. I know that that does. It's obvious. And what I hear in all of it is that we're not just reacting to what people say, we're reacting to what we think it means. And I think that happens really fast in a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. If so, our brains are so much the we think about listening in terms of ears. Like the number of times people have said you have two ears, one mouth, use them in proportion. Love the theory, love the message and the meaning behind that, which is you use them in proportion. However, the ears are the vehicle for sound. That has nothing to do with what the actual understanding piece of it. It's just the hearing piece of it. The brain is what's interfering with the understanding. And that's because we have our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own impulses, our own memories, our own stories that are living in our subconscious brain. And that's why we're responding, reacting, whether that's listening to ourselves or listening to somebody else. And so the work is around the brain, not the ears. And that's what the tools do, is to settle the brain down. And because that's why we're missing things. That's why
Mhm.
we're misinterpreting things. And that's why we need to figure out how to do this so we can solve the right problems and innovate and build our communities differently so that we can get things done together.
Where do you see people miss that? It's just in conversation, or where do you see it
Email,
most?
social media, conversations, you name it. I
Everywhere.
mean, everywhere. Misunderstandings are everywhere. I mean, and that's because we're hearing something, hearing the sounds. Think about your partner, your spouse, they say something and you feel that because you have a story you're telling yourself about what that means or what that reminds you of. Sometimes you're aware of it, sometimes you aren't. So we tend to go with back with more of the same rather than to lean in to ask, tell me more, or seek to understand. It's so counterintuitive to lean towards it rather than away from it. Yeah.
Right,
I
it's
I had
just
a conversation with somebody yesterday where they promised me something if it was somebody I'm working with, and they had told me they were gonna send me a few things, and I got on the call and I said, I'm disappointed because I haven't gotten what," and I know this person is very good at what they do and very heartfelt, but the answer was to just provide that for me right away. That's part of the solution, but part of the conversation is really, wait a second, I just want you to understand how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, and let's take care of the relationship, not just hand me what I asked for, because because that's what makes you feel better. What'll make me feel better is if we do both, because I want to take care of the relationship and not just the task. But that's hard for people because conflict is tough, and hurting people's feelings is a hard thing to live with. But if we go, you know what? Why don't you tell me more instead of let me fix this? That's the bridge.
Right, instead of reacting, I've heard you talk a lot about that, about being proactive. It literally is being proactive to listen
To
and to
understand.
ask more ask
Yeah.
more questions.
Yeah, to seek to understand, go what's beyond what's the surface. Yeah, because what's on the surface is very rarely what the whole issue is. Just like my physical pain, on the surface, I looked fine. My body inside was very broken and I was in tremendous pain. And that's some version of our stories on most days. We all have stuff going on beneath the surface. I learned this as a home based family therapist when I started my career at 22. Knocking on people's doors, I'd walk up to, the door and I'd hear a lot of things, not always pleasant. But as soon as that knock came, then we put the persona on.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
so we have the persona. That's just human nature. We need to do that. We can't wear all the chaos or all the problems on our sleeves. But some of it's always there. We just don't know it. We just don't ask about it or see it or yeah. And that's in a business conversation versus and a personal conversation. That's in a classroom. That's everywhere.
If we're not careful, we can be so disappointed in people that we forget how to connect. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and if we all just worked on our listening skills, and then get a little curious about why it makes you feel
Yeah.
the way you're feeling. I mean, the
Yeah.
more I look into the neuroscience of the brain, I'm just fascinated by it.
It's
It
amazing. And what we know now that we didn't know 25 years ago is staggering.
it
Staggering.
Yes, yes, and it helps
Staggering.
me in every single relationship, whether it be business or personal,
Yeah.
just to know.
Attachment theory and all the ways that what we understand now versus what we understood 20 years ago. It's because of what they can study live versus, in a postmortem, as they
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
Yeah. So it is. So I think we serve each other and ourselves better when we seek to understand. And that's what I mean when I say listen. I don't mean agree. I don't mean do whatever that person I it, listen to understand means I'm going to make sure I understand you before I give you an answer, before I tell you what I think. I'm going to I'm going to give you that gift and that's going to level set everything. So that means we get the story and it means we confirm that we got the story. We communicate what we understand. And that's how what we close what I call the listening gap. The gap between what is said and what is understood. That's the problem that I'm seeking to solve.
The listening gap is very much like the pause. If we just take a moment
Right.
to think before we act or
Yeah.
speak, it would save a lot of trouble, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I was out to dinner with a friend last night who's going through some tough things in her marriage and the same thing like how do we all have to listen to ourselves first. That's part of that pause. So rather than just reacting or, you know, and how do we get that pause? Sometimes we need help to do that, right?
Mhm,
That's part of
mhm.
pausing is ask for help, reach out because we're clouded by our own stories too. But, um, but learning to listen to yourself is a way to pause.
Definitely, definitely. For someone listening right now who's realizing, "I do that. I assume. I fill in
Yeah.
the gaps." What's a small way they can start catching it in real time? Like, what's the first step for them to start working on that skill
Yeah.
or learning it?
First of all, I just want to say it's nobody's fault because the brain is it's powerful. So
Mhm.
we talk neuroscience. So this is like, it's just autopilot. So the blame game doesn't help. But the best thing you do is realize it's a problem we all have. It's just human nature. So if you're willing to solve that problem, you're going to be so far ahead. So step one is maybe I think I'm a better listener than I actually am. And maybe I can start to look at or ask people, how do you think I listen to you? Whether that's your kid, your spouse, your parent, a friend, getting some feedback really will help you understand who you need to take better care of. And that can, in and of itself, can really be amazingly helpful in your life. So that's step one. If you're a leader, in a business, you ask your employees, they may not tell you the truth right away because you're the boss, but I guarantee asking that question will open a door that eventually other things will happen. So, first identify a problem because you can't fix a problem you don't know you have. And
Hmm.
then the second, and this is really, I think, the biggest miss in listening, and it's kind of in the middle of how we solve the problem, but I think it'll make sense to people, is that the real gap is we don't communicate what we understand. Most people just say, I understand. And that doesn't really help much. So if you start saying, let me see if I get you, and start summarizing what you understand to the person back. Doesn't mean you get it right. That is a game changer. People have assigned me to be one of the smartest people in the room more times than I can count simply because I do that, because it's such a rare thing that happens so infrequently.
I agree. And you know what I think the best practice in the world is? Doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I had to really listen. I have to really work on my listening skills
Yeah,
because it's important just
yeah.
to feel what the other person is speaking on and also to
Not
lift
think of
them
your
up.
next question, right?
Yeah, yeah, and just to lift you up because you're the guest and this is about you and this is about lifting your message up to the world, and it's very important to me. And so I've worked very hard at trying to listen well
Mhm.
because I don't think I always did before. I think I talked over people,
Well,
which is rude.
well, I'm gonna I'm gonna say that it's actually okay to interrupt, which I know people are like, "What?" But it's why you interrupt. It's and how you interrupt. And so this is a more advanced skill, and I wouldn't start with this, but if you interrupt somebody to understand, that's different than interrupting to talk. And so that's the game changer. Then you're going, wait a minute, let me see if I get you. And now I'm interrupting to share what I about you rather than talk about me. That's a very different way to interrupt.
Yes.
And it's
You're right. I
powerful.
never thought of it being like a different type of interruption. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes having a podcast myself, a guest can go way off into the woods. I see the woods behind you for the people who are listening. And that's not always helpful
Mhm.
because people are terrible by and large storytellers. As much experiences we have at talking and speaking and how much education we get around it, people don't tell a narrative in a super helpful way most of the time. And so we confuse the listener from the start. So if you let somebody just meander off and go everywhere, you're going to be bored and confused. Your listeners are going to be bored and confused. So part of it is being a really good guide in the conversation. And interrupting is a pretty essential skill with your kids, with your family, with your in meetings. It's just how you do it. We have it so we have it wrong.
It's the timing, right?
It's the how. It's am I interrupting to tell you what I think or to respond or react versus interrupting to understand.
Got you. I got you. Wow, that's our first conversation we had, I learned so much, and now I'm learning more.
Well, I'm glad to
We'll
hear
just have
that.
to keep going on, having
Sure,
more and more conversations.
for sure.
Now, this is part of our becoming series, as I shared with you. I I'd love to ask you this, not from the beginning of your story, but from the evolution of it.
Okay.
Who have you become as your
Hmm.
message has grown?
Who have I
Has it
become?
Mhm,
Wow.
how has it changed you, or has it? Yeah, I know you're evolving
Well, I hope
with
so. I mean, I hope so, both with age and with understanding. I think for me, it's while we educate people how to do this, it's and that's important. It's more about the moments of what it means to people when they start to redefine it and how it impacts their relationship. So I've realized that for me, it's while I've always experienced that, I'm just taking that in a different way and allowing that to be part of what I feel and experience because it's really profound to hear how people have moments that change their relationships, and it's just and that like that I'm making that difference, owning that is like I'm helping people have that difference in their lives, and it's very, very special, and it's a privilege. It's such a privilege. Like it's such a privilege to witness that and to be part of that. I was doing a keynote a couple weeks ago, and just some of the comments, and it's just like, wow, what a privilege. It's a responsibility too. It's a
Mhm.
responsibility. It reminds me of my days as an athlete and when I became a leader that, it's it's important, but it's a responsibility. So I just take that very seriously. And but it's a gift. Yeah, it's a gift I give, and hopefully I'm getting that gift back.
That is beautiful. I love that so much. And it reminds me of kindness, right? Because we always think we should be kind to others, for them, for others. But when
Yeah.
we are kind and we're giving to others, it literally heals your soul. I mean, it does a lot for you as a person that's becoming. And I think that it's important. And you feel that from your message, so.
Well, I the joke is, nobody studies psychology. Well, I shouldn't generalize. I'll speak to myself, but many of us, or some of us, who go into the field of psychology do so to heal ourselves. We help others to fix our own childhood dysfunction, and I think that's the other thing that's evolved is that like that's what the work's about. It's my own journey of healing as well. That my mom didn't have the experience that she needed to heal in a way, and that the healing that I get to do for myself through helping others is really it's not a selfless act. This is not selfless. There's a lot that I get back as a result. But I was listening to something last night on abundance, and if you having an abundance mindset means I don't need that. I have plenty. Is like I have plenty, you take it. And the more you know you take it, the more you actually get. It's kind of so again counterintuitive to the way we think we want to hold on to what we have, but the more we give it away often is when we really find the most abundance in things. Yeah.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
You know, before we wrap up today, I want to make sure we let people know how they can connect with you and learn more about your work and your amazing podcast.
Yeah, they can find me at Christine Miles Listens. So I do a lot of speaking. That's also where they'll find the podcast if they want to listen, on Spotify and in the other places as well. Or they can find us at the listening path. .com, which is where we have programs for classrooms from elementary classrooms to high school to businesses. My mission is to globalize listening education, make it a privilege, not a right, or pardon me, a right, not a privilege, that this is something that should just be part of our core standards. So let's start with elementary school. Let's make people for the future good at this skill, but let's catch those up that haven't gotten it when they were younger.
Right. I think I've heard you say it numerous times on some of your videos. What age would you rather learn about listening? A young age or at 50?
Yeah, like skiing, like nobody's was picked up skiing at 40 and went, you know what? I'm glad I waited because now it's a piece of cake. Why not do it when you're low to the ground and you're
Yeah.
fearless and you're not afraid of falling?
Mhm.
You don't have bad habits. So it's so much easier. I mean, I've seen this in motion, watching second and fourth graders, third graders. I had a class of third graders about a month ago on a Zoom call telling me one by one what this did for them and how it helped them, the program, to learn to listen. And it's like, they're sponges. It's so easy. They don't have to overcome so many obstacles.
Yeah, they don't have to undo anything.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I had a golf I learned golf in my 40s after my accident, and I had the golf pro. I said, "I don't go to the driving range and practice because of I have a cervical injury, and I couldn't swing that many swings back in the day." And I said, "I don't go to the driving range." And he said, "Look, if you go to the driving range and do 50 swings wrong, you gotta do 100 swings right to set it back to neutral." And so I'm like, "That makes a lot of sense." So if the sooner we learn this well, we're just gonna it won't solve everything, but it certainly will dynamically, I believe, change some real fundamental ways we approach each other.
And we'll just all keep watching you and learning from you. It's incredible. Let me just share what stands out to me. We think becoming is about changing who we are. But what you've shown us is that sometimes it's about slowing down enough to actually see what's been there all along.
Uh,
And when we stop reacting to the meaning we create, we start understanding what's really underneath. Everything shifts. Everything shifts. So thank you for that. I thank you for that. And thank you for coming back and sharing
my
this with us.
pleasure. My pleasure. I love what you're doing. It just, I mean, our stories, I mean, very different kinds of trauma and background. Like, somebody always has it worse, is what I always say. But I always say, like, you can turn your trauma into some really meaningful shit if you want
I know.
to. Like, it
Well,
doesn't
I
have.
always thought I was one of
Yeah.
few. I always thought I was one of few that grew up like that. But oh my gosh, Christina, I am one of many.
Well,
And
we all have something. May I? I'm gonna be graphic here, but we're all fucked up. It's just,
yes.
do we know it or not? I mean, whenever that scale is and that continuum is, like, I was talking to somebody last night. I'm like, she goes, I don't want to mess up my kids. I go, well, it's inevitable. Like,
Yeah.
if they're gonna have their version of whatever that looks like. Your goal isn't, you can't protect them from everything. You just want to give them a running start, right? 'Cause so I'm not advocating don't care, but, like, it's just inevitable. So, but I'm people say about my accident, well, I'm sure you wish didn't happen, and I'm like, absolutely. And I don't know what my life would look like if it hadn't. I don't know if it would be better, or if certain aspects would seemingly be better, but I wouldn't be here, and that I wouldn't want to trade.
Right. You wouldn't be here advocating for listening as a skill. That's
Maybe
for
not,
sure.
not to this extent.
Right. Right. And it just drives you. And it's because you're using that as fuel, turning pain into purpose,
Yeah.
struggles into stepping stones, all that.
Though, whatever that looks like. Look, so many people do a much better job day to day helping their neighbor in their communities. That we all have some way that we can make a difference in somebody's world. And that doesn't have to be at the kind of scale that I'm talking about. Like I said, I fall short in other areas. I think it's so important that we all just realize whatever our special talent is or whatever pattern we can break, that's good. That's also enough. It's just enough.
Yes, it is. And life is unfair and it's hard. And we just use the hell out of all that hard stuff
Yeah.
and move forward with it and use it like crazy,
Right.
and get curious. Figure
Yep.
out, okay, why am I behaving like this? Where is this pain coming
Yeah.
from?
Yeah.
Because you
It's hard.
can't use it until you see it and name it.
It's hard work. It's
It
hard
is,
work,
but
but
it's
worth
worth
it.
it.
Yes, it is.
So if this conversation resonated with you, pay attention to your next moment. Not just what's said, but listening for what's underneath it. You pause, you listen, you choose, you build momentum. Take care, and I will see you all next week. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.